So I want to talk about this. This is another thing I wanted to talk about today. So we talked about a general strike on your show yesterday, and we covered the McDonald's strike on this show, and I'm sure you mentioned the McDonald's strike as well. That happened last week. I believe it was on the 19th.
The 19th, yeah.
Where in 15 different cities, McDonald's workers went on strike for $15 an hour, and we haven't seen, at least I haven't found, a lot of information yet about the results of the strike. I think we're still going to be waiting a little while here, but here's something I wanted to share. While I was sleuthing, I came across this, and friendly reminder: when the corporate media, when people want to stifle a movement, and especially something like the corporate media, which does the handiwork to stifle movements all the time, and it's been that way since the 60s at least, the first thing they do is they try to trivialize the cause itself. They try to make you think that the people who are out there have nothing to bitch about. What are they? Everything's fine. What are they complaining about? So here's an example of that right here. Look at this article from CNBC. McDonald's raises hourly wages for company-owned restaurants. That sounds good, doesn't it? And this is from Thursday, May 13th, about a week before the strike was set to happen. McDonald's is raising the hourly wages for its U.S. company-owned restaurants by an average of 10%. The fast food giant is looking to hire 10,000 workers over the next 3 months. Based on the current labor market, McDonald's expects that the average wage for employees of its company-owned restaurants will be $15 an hour by 2024. So by 2024, people will be making almost a living wage, and it'll be worth even less by 2024. But here's the fun part. You think, well, that they're raising wages. I'm just going to read the headline. Isn't that great? They're raising wages. This company-owned restaurant, a lot of people just kind of breeze by something like that. But what does that really mean? Well, guess what, folks? We got to scroll all the way down to the bottom to find out what that really means. If we scroll all the way down to the bottom, all the way down, 1 paragraph, 2 paragraph, 3 paragraph, 4 paragraph. Here they're saying workers at McDonald's company-owned will see a pay raise. Entry-level employees will be making $11 to $17 an hour. Shift managers, 15 to 20. Okay, wages are getting better. Here's the kicker, everybody. However, this is from the article at the very bottom. However, these increases will not directly impact workers who are employed by restaurants owned by McDonald's franchisees. The fast food giant franchises 95% of its U.S. restaurants. What does that mean? That means everything they just talked about only applies to around 5% of all McDonald's restaurants. They don't mention that part until the very end, because the way it works is you can franchise a McDonald's if you're just an individual. And I don't know why I pointed at myself. I do not have the resources to franchise a McDonald's, nor would I even if I did. But and those franchisees can just kind of run it the way they want. They do have some rules, but McDonald's sure as hell isn't going to make them pay living wages. They have some rules they need to follow. To echo the brilliant Mitch Hedberg joke, they can't start selling spaghetti, but they don't have to pay living wages. Isn't that just textbook? I mean, that is not news. That is a PR piece.
Yeah, it's astounding. I could go on and on about like how the media just isn't reporting what's actually happening. But I think I was actually surprised that text wasn't white and you had to like highlight it to see that last sentence.
I'm surprised it wasn't like one of those, they have an asterisk and then it's like in real small print after the asterisk. Yeah, like it's surprising that it was even in the last paragraph.
Yeah. They had to do that for like legal purposes or something.
Right. They couldn't get away with just not having it in at all. So they were like, in the last paragraph, let them know that this only applies to like 5% of McDonald's restaurants. Like and that could have been the headline, by the way. They could have been like 5% of McDonald's restaurants are kind of maybe sort of doing something about living wages. Other 95% doing nothing.
Exactly.
Workers striking.
Exactly. That's the real piece. That's the real piece of news here. But we're just, I mean, the media is a big part of why I mean, I just feel as though we have gone through our entire lives having like propaganda pushed in our face. And it's not necessarily like government driven, it's like oligarchy driven. Um, it's like billionaire driven, and it's all this thing. It's like these holders of power, which are like rich capitalists, they give money to our government officials and they're like, oh, yeah, we're really good partners. This will really trickle down to the rest of you guys. And like 7 generations later, we're still like, yeah, we can't eat. We don't have a house.
Not happening. Not
Yeah,
happening.
still not.
Yeah, well, it's amazing how we just accept and I mean like the collective we in the United States, but you even see people on the left echoing these types of sentiments at times where they demonize. Everyone loves to say state media like it's some big demon, and it certainly can be. But you know what else is also state media is what they have in Norway and England and Canada and all of those structures. Well, none of them are perfect. They're way better than ours. In particular, Norway. I mean, Norway has like the top press freedom ranking in the world.
Mhm.
Even without the chocolate aroma, they still beat out Switzerland. And like Norway has like the top press freedom ranking, and it's because they have an elected board to kind of oversee this stuff where it's like media outlets have to be very transparent about who owns them, who funds them. Journalists' rights are very much protected. I'm sure it's got its flaws, everything does, but it's a much healthier system that citizens have a say in compared to what we have here, where we literally just hand it over to corporations and they can do whatever they want.
Mhm. And I think about how like Fox News is allowed to call itself news. And I
Sure.
think like a lot of stuff really started with Reagan when he was like, oops, we don't need to have any kind of standards in what constitutes news. Um, and we've kind of been flailing ever since. It's been real fun, guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, they got rid of the fairness doctrine. I want to say that was like 87.
One
Not
of
that that
Reagan's
was
best.
yeah, right? Like, not that that was the be all and end all, but that was a big thing. And then the other big moment was during Clinton in 96 with the Telecom Act.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was the act that, even though it's so funny, that bill started in 1995, and it was supposed to address like broadband discrepancies. It was supposed to be about accessibility to stuff like broadband and stuff like that. Then it got completely reassessed by, I think, it was like that Republican out of South Dakota, and it became the disaster that we know it as. And it completely gutted the amount of media, like gutted the rules in regards to the media that one company could own. So it's like we used to have regulations, like you could only own like 2 AM, 2 FM stations in a given market. You could only own like one newspaper. They gutted all those rules. So that really allowed the Murdoch empire to flourish, that allowed cable news to really flourish. That really ushered in the era we have today,
Mm-hmm.
which is the complete opposite of how a democratic society should be run. This idea that Comcast can pass off whatever they want as news, that Time Warner can pass off whatever they want as news, that Rupert Murdoch's wet dream is considered news. And that's what we have. That's the big trinity right there. Comcast, Time Warner, Murdoch.
Mm-hmm.
That's our
Yes.
news structure.
Totally. And he's also, Rupert Murdoch has also impacted international news, multiple different countries. It's really scary that one person can change the course of global history to the extent that he has. And I just think, and it kind of goes back to like, I have a very firm stance that there is no such thing as a good billionaire. And I also feel as
I'm with
though,
you.
like, yeah, I also feel like no one person should hold so much power and say. And it's just not possible to maintain any kind of normality if you have that much power.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's
what's going on. We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your news